Hi, I wanted to make this video because I've been thinking, and this time I've been thinking about insomnia. And the reason I've been thinking about insomnia is because I've had a few challenges with insomnia in my life, and I've learnt a few tricks that I thought might be useful to share. I understand how horrible insomnia can be, but I can also offer a message of hope because I've managed to get myself back to a healthy sleep pattern now. So I know what it's like to dread going to bed, knowing that it's likely to be a long and stressful night where I might lie awake for hours and feel that I'm in a situation that's totally out of my control. And the further into the night it gets, the more you know that the next day is going to be a struggle because you'll be feeling exhausted. So I did have a specific trigger that started my problems with insomnia, but I don't think it necessarily matters what it is that starts the problem, especially if it's a trauma, because if it's anxiety that's keeping you awake, then I think the things that I learnt that have helped me can probably be useful to other people who might be looking for some help. So, if you've seen my previous videos, you'll know that my husband had a cardiac arrest in his sleep a few years ago. He did survive and he's still here, but we still don't have any explanation as to why it happened. He was perfectly fit and healthy before it happened, and even after all the tests, the doctors still couldn't find anything wrong with him. So that's been quite hard to come to terms with, and it made nighttime start to seem a lot scarier than it ever used to be. It was a traumatic experience, and those sorts of things probably leave a mark on you forever. But I've managed to make a lot of progress, so that's what I'm planning to share today. So I wouldn't say that I've completely solved it, and sometimes I do still walk around the bedrooms during the night and check that everyone's okay, but I definitely do that a lot less often now. So the problem started from the trauma of that experience, but I think it kind of grew into a general fear of the night, and that fear kept me awake. And each day, as the night got closer, I'd start feeling anxious, knowing that I'd soon be lying there in the darkness, trying to stay calm and trying to believe that something terrible wasn't about to happen. I mean, I knew it was understandable that I felt like that, but still, it didn't make the situation any easier. So I got into a routine of lying awake for a lot of the night and only really drifting off to sleep when it was almost morning and I'd started to give up on the idea. And then my alarm would go off and it would be time to start the day. And I'd somehow get through the day at work, and then I'd fall asleep on the sofa in the evening. And then when it was time to go to bed, the fear would come back, and so the cycle would continue. I couldn't force myself to go to sleep, so it felt like I didn't have any control of the situation, and I just felt completely stuck. I couldn't change what had happened or the impact that it had on me, but I also couldn't get on with my life when I couldn't manage to sleep at night. So it felt like an impossible and never-ending situation. And the only time I'd ever experienced anything like that before was when my children were babies. One of them was a terrible sleeper, so me and my husband used to take it in turns on duty through the night, with one of us taking the earlier shift through until about 3 a.m. and then the other one taking over for the rest of the night. I mean, the result was similar, but the situation was totally different because back then the challenge was to try and stay awake and look after the baby when everything about me was falling asleep. So there was nothing really I learnt from that time to help me with the different type of insomnia that was keeping me awake this time, apart from maybe how to survive the day with hardly any sleep. So this new type of insomnia was being driven by anxiety. And that anxiety was troubling me during the day as well as at night. But there's just something a bit more intense about anxiety when it hits you at night. And then, of course, the original event had happened at night. So the whole thing just haunted me a bit more at night, really. And sometimes I used to feel fairly calm during the day and even started to feel quite sleepy in the evening until the lights went out. And then suddenly my mind would become more active and my heart rate would start going up and I just couldn't seem to stop it. And then I'd start listening to know if my husband was still breathing, and then I'd start wondering if my own heart might decide to stop beating. And then I'd panic that I wasn't ready to die, and I'd think about all the things I needed to do if I did want to feel ready, like write down all my passwords or leave a note for everyone. So I felt really stuck in that situation because nobody could offer me any reassurances that something terrible wouldn't happen in the night. And I'd seen with my own eyes that things like that do happen, even to healthy people. So it did get a bit easier as more time went past because I could reassure myself that nobody died last night or the night before. So that showed me that perhaps nobody was going to die that night either. But even if I did start to relax, there was nothing to listen to other than my own heartbeat. And where I probably wouldn't have taken any notice of that in the past, it became another source of worry. I still don't like noticing it now, but I try my best not to. 'Cause obviously I don't want it to stop, but I don't want to be aware of it all the time either. So maybe that part of it is quite specific to my own fears, but still I think the things that have helped me are things that could help other people, even if your worries aren't the same as mine. So I have a few things to recommend. And firstly is to try and make sure that you're tired when you go to bed. So if you need a nap during the day, try to do it at lunchtime or early afternoon rather than during the evening. So keep yourself busy in the evening if you have to, and whatever it takes really to make sure that you stay awake. Because evening napping is really unhelpful for insomnia. And next is to think about what you're eating and drinking during the day and during the evening. Don't skip meals because for me that's almost guaranteed to keep me awake. And regular meals really help to keep your body calmer. And then obviously avoid caffeine and alcohol if you can. And then the next tip is to take some magnesium. So magnesium helps everything to relax, and it's unlikely that you'll be getting enough just from your food. So I take it in a capsule, and I also put it on my skin, especially before I go to bed. And I've got a magnesium spray for that. And I actually know that it contains real magnesium because it got pulled out of my luggage during a security check at an airport. So don't worry, they still let me take it, but once they'd checked what it was. And then the next tip is to make sure that your bedroom is as dark as possible. So I've got a street light outside my window, so I actually bought some magnetic strips that you can stick onto the window frame, and then when you close the curtains or the blind, you can attach the other side of the magnet to make sure that no light can get in around the edges. And it's actually made a huge difference for me, and I wish I'd discovered it years ago. And it hardly cost anything. And so, there's been no more waking up at 4 a.m. in the summer. So, you're tired because you didn't have a nap, you've eaten regular meals, you've taken magnesium, and you've made your room really dark. So now you just need to get to sleep. So the next tip from me is to slow down your breathing, and that tells your body that it's safe and it's time to relax. So I do that by counting in for 4 and then out for 8 if I can manage it. And at the very least, I try to manage breathing out for longer than in. And if I do that for a few minutes, it really seems to calm everything down. And then the final step is to give your brain something to do. And I often did things with the alphabet, like trying to name a country or an animal for every letter of the alphabet. So maybe A for antelope, and then B for badger, C for camel. You get the idea. So carry on right through the alphabet. And it's quite a boring thing to do, but it's also a bit of a challenge, and my brain couldn't seem to be able to resist doing it. And if you do get to Z, you can try doing it again backwards, which is really hard. And I still try and remember to keep my breathing slow if I can. And I often found actually that I would get halfway through and the next thing I knew it would be morning. So I definitely think it was quite effective. If I need to give my brain something to do these days, I set it the task of thinking of subjects to make videos about. And it seems to like that job and is happy to stop worrying about other things to be able to think about video ideas. But the only problem with that is that I've usually forgotten any of the ideas by the morning, but still, it does work to distract my mind and help me relax enough to fall asleep. And actually, I know I said that was the last step, but I've remembered another one that's been quite helpful, and that's to have some white noise to stop me listening to my heartbeat. So I don't very often need that anymore, but when I did need it, it was really helpful. And so I used to put on a fan just on a slow setting and direct the breeze in another direction. And it stopped me from being able to listen to breathing and heartbeat noises, and it was really a relief. I was also planning to try things like rain noises or forest noises on my phone if that didn't work. But I never actually got around to that because the fan worked out perfectly for me. So taking all those actions really helped me to start feeling a bit more in control and a bit more relaxed. And gradually I began to trust that nighttime wasn't so bad after all. And now I look forward to it. I sleep well every night and I feel good in the morning. I do still have some of those same anxieties, but I've learned how to stop them from ruining my sleep. So I hope that by sharing those things, I might be able to help other people who might be struggling with their sleep. So if you can relate to that, or if you have any other tips to share, I'd love to hear them if you'd like to leave a comment. So I hope you've taken something useful from this video, but I think that's all for this time. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!